GT5 podcast coming out to another episode. Obviously, took a break, as I said in the prior couple of episodes. Had a rough little patch, but that's how life goes. So you go through rough patches and then you kind of get back up. What was it Ti said? When they push you down, you got to get back up. So that's what we're doing. Um, I'm in the process of writing a book called Trauma Bonded, and so I figured I'd spend some episodes and kind of like talk about the book, talk about um, my reason for writing the book, my experience, my experiences. The book is partially fictional. I had to fictionalize some of it. I couldn't be completely 100%. It's based on there are true events, um, but obviously you spice things up. You fictionalize stuff because you don't want to like put in you don't want to put individuals' names in there. So I spent a little bit of time kind of like jazzing that up. One thing that I found, and I'm probably about 50% of the way done. Um, Hope my goal is the summertime to get it out for at least the first of a three-part series, essentially. But the hard part about writing is you kind of your brain wants to do so much. Like you have all these emotions and all these feelings, and you're just like you're trying to put it down, but you also have to remember that when you're writing, you have to be able to put it down in a way that people could follow, right? And so that way they could follow and they kind of get attached to the characters or they get attached to the couple or the relationship or the individual. So I kind of had to spend some time figuring out, okay, what's the goal of the book? Um, and I kind of came to a conclusion recently that the goal of the book is going to be to not only give you guys an insight into the career path that I've been in, but also give you guys some insight into how certain career paths can put you in difficult and certain situations. And you put yourself in situations, but there are some careers where, trauma is a part of the career, right? Medical field, um, any kind of first responders, firefighters go out and see people that are having heart attacks or broken legs or gunshot wounds, stuff like that. And so you kind of gotta, so when it comes to trauma bonding, sometimes the job that you're in puts you in a position to be bonded traumatically with people, right? And so I also, that's a twist in the book too, that it kind of gives you guys insight on how certain jobs can also put you in unhealthy bonds with people just because of the day to day, right? As a law enforcement officer, you go out there and you see the craziest stuff. And so when you go out there and you see this crazy stuff and you're seeing it with other people, you don't know that you're bonding with these people like this, but you are because trauma bonds are bonds that come from traumatic instances, right? Now, that's a different type of a traumatic bond. But if the bond starts there and it shifts into something else, and you get trauma and you get bonded with the wrong person, you're it's just a hazard of the job at this point, right? I got brothers that I would go to war for. We've seen some things, we've been through some things, but so it can shift right into a different type of traumatic bond. So there are different types of trauma bonds. There are bonds that I believe happen from, like I said, from just the day to day of jobs or work or things that you're doing. Because a bond is a traumatic experience with somebody, right? Now there are bonds that are intentional. People will trauma bond you intentionally, right? Um, they have an ultimatum or they have some type of an ending goal in their mind. But it could start out that in the line of work that you're working, because of the traumatic experiences that you already have a certain type of bond with this person. And so now that bond changes into something else. It morphs into something else. And I think that's one of the big things in the book that I want people to be able to take away as I kind of talk about the book and kind of talk about mental abuse and that's another piece of the story is mental abuse and kind of how that affects people. People it's easy to see physical abuse. It's really easy to see it because you got black eyes, you got people with broken arms or broken fingers, or you got ligature marks around the neck because they've been choked or something like that. So I mean, those things are easy to see, right? But those things heal quicker than mental abuse. Mental abuse takes time, takes effort. Sometimes people that were mentally abused it takes years for them to get a baseline because your body reacts to how your mind thinks. And I think that's something that people don't understand, that people don't really take the time to understand. And in my book, as a detective on in the domestic violence and kind of DV crimes section, I get the opportunity to meet people that have gone through physical abuse, but I end up with a case essentially of somebody that has gone through physical and mental abuse. And through the case, I explore the mental abuse that this person has had happen to them, and it brings back my traumatic experience. And so, and in the book, I think that I'm given a glimpse of the mindset that I'm still in the healing process as I'm dealing with this case, even though the mental abuse that happened to me happened years prior to this happening. And so it's kind of a reflection type of story. It's like you're talking about what's going on now, but you're also having moments of reflection where you're just like, man, I remember this instance and I remember what I went through here, and this helps me relate to this person here on this level. Um, and so basically, what I want to do with the book and kind of my overall mindset is um, help people understand um, what what it is to be trauma bonded, but also help people understand how to break trauma bonds, right? Which is hard. Church people, Christians call them strongholds. They call them demonic strongholds. Um, and I'm a Christian, obviously, so I've explored the stronghold notion of trauma bonding. Um, because one thing that I found is that in order for you to be trauma bonded, you have to be deceived about your beliefs in yourself, right? Because I think a lot of times this happens to people that are extremely empathetic. Like if you're an extremely empathetic person, like you feel for people, you want the best for people. You get around the wrong person, and then they can take advantage of your want and your will and the way that you think. Where you're just like, man, I just want the best for somebody, or I just want this for somebody. And so basically, what I'm gonna do here in the next couple minutes is I'm gonna talk about what the definition of a trauma bond is. And I'm going to give you guys a little tidbit when you're first starting out into the talking phases of relationship to where you can have the opportunity to be like, this is definitely something that's weird. It's a red flag. And it's from a person that is trauma bonded to somebody else that you may be talking to. But now, if you get trauma bonded to them, you're trauma bonded to whatever they're trauma bonded to. So then you're just intertwining a whole bunch of negative energy and spirits together, right? So trauma bond is an intense emotional attachment that develops between a victim and their abuser. So when a trauma bond happens in a relationship, right, whether it's a friendship or relationship, or if it's a mother to son, or mother to daughter, or father to daughter, father to son, parents, siblings, it happens to in any kind of relationship, there is an abuser and there's a victim. You don't have a trauma bond unless you have the two. So I think we need to understand that. So when we talk about trauma bond, there is an abuser and there's a victim, right? Um, and it's characterized by cycles of abuse and intermittent positive reinforcement, making it difficult for the victim to leave the relationship despite the harm being inflicted upon them. And so, what happens, and this is an intentional act by an abuser, right? They want to reinforce positive things because you end up chasing the positive stuff. You end up chasing that. You're like, man, this pop, man, they were good. And you end up making excuses essentially, man, they were good, man, but they're only it's only they must be going through a phase, right? You start making excuses. They must be going through something, and so that's where the problem in lies, right? And then what happens is your body has a chemical reaction to this type of abuse, right? And so your body starts to overload on cortisol, which is a stress hormone. So now your body is living in stress, intense stress all the time. And so your fight or flight, right? Anxiety comes from this type of stuff: fight or flight, fight or flight, fight or flight, constantly. And so you get to a point where you're like walking on eggshells with people, right? With this particular person. And so what happens is your body starts to exhibit physical signs and symptoms because of the mental abuse. And I think that that's when it's getting bad, because you'll have moments, even for me, after going through the experience that I went through. I'm a dude. I'm not scared of anything, but that particular person, my body reacts in a negative way anytime that particular person's name is brought up, or if I see that person. It's like heart starts pounding. It's anxiety. My body, because my body remembers, right? What your body does when you're mentally abused is it puts pins in certain situations, and your brain remembers, right? The feeling, right? And so when anything comes up that resembles that feeling, it causes your body to react, right? Because your brain has put a pin in there. It's like it's kind of like when you guys drop a pin on your iPhones, you're like, hey, this is the location. Your body remembers. And I think that we get in the mindset that we don't believe that our bodies remember, but our bodies do remember 110%. They're like, man, I remember the feeling here. And so you associate that feeling with a person that did that to you. And so you get to a point where you're just like, man, my body remembers that and it's reacting to that. And so that's part of being in a trauma bond. Like if you notice that and you get out of a relationship with somebody and you like see them and you're nervous as heck, you're sweating, you're anxious, that's because there was something that was going on in the relationship that you may not even have known. And most of the time, you don't really know till you get to the outside, right? So I'm always big on people getting to the outside so you can look back and then you can, whenever you're outside of a situation or relationship and you can look back in and you're not the person's not like right here in your face, right? Because what happens is the abuser knows they're abusing you. Most of the time, they know what they're doing. It's a defense mechanism developed from past trauma for them, but it's not an excuse. And I think people make it an excuse. They're like, well, they had past trauma. Just because somebody had past trauma doesn't give them the excuse to be able to abuse you mentally, right? And so we have to stand on that. And I think that's part of the problem is society is that we want to there's the mental health epidemic, right? And this people that do this have mental there's it's a mental health disorder that they probably have. There's all kind of different things. They got cluster B personality disorders, all that jazz. I'm not even gonna get into that. But they categorize it as mental health issues, right? And so what happens is they get a pass because it's categorized as mental health issues when they're actually intentionally hurting people to basically save themselves. Um, So yeah, I mean it's essentially what the kind of just an overview of trauma bonding. I'm gonna continue kind of to talk about this over time, but the plan is for my book called Trauma Bonded to come out this summer, the first of a three-part series. The first couple people that I've kind of let read what I have right now, they love it. It's gonna be addicting. You're gonna be hooked because it leaves you in a position to think what's gonna happen next, man, and you get attached to the main character because you get to because some of you guys live this, some of you guys have been through this, and for those that have been through this, you're definitely going to get you're going to be attached because you're going to be like, man, like it may take you back to experiences that you may have had yourself. So, and I mean, and that to me is the goal is to be able to um, and it's help me be able to heal that too. You know, it may have happened a long time ago or whatever, but it helps me be able to heal that too. So again, it's GT Divide Podcast though. Please like, subscribe, and share on YouTube, on TikTok, a lot on TikTok. I'll probably be posting a lot more on there. But yeah, just be ready to support when it comes out, guys. Thank you.